Welcome back to News here on Rise News. Now, 4 people have been rescued after a section of a 2-story residential apartment collapsed in Abuja on Saturday morning, with several people trapped in the rubble. The collapsed building is located beside Cupid Hotel, Sultan Dansuki Road, Phase 2, Site 2, Kubwa, Buhari Area Council of the Federal Capital Territory. Rise News senior correspondent Ferdinand Durora reports.
Another building collapse in the FCT. The 14 weeks and comes less than 24 hours after the fatal collapse of a school in Jos. First responders are on site, making frantic efforts to rescue casualties, some of whom were asleep when a section of the 2-story residential building crumbled early Saturday morning. Alongside the emergency workers are policemen, ensuring that properties salvaged from the ruins are not looted. The Commissioner of Police FCT, Bennett Igwe, gives an update of the situation.
I was one of the early people to be here with the DPO, and that was when we started looking for rescue mission on what we can do. We rescued 3 people, and they're in the general hospital here. We are still, rescue operation is still going on. That is why all of us are here, because we can see here somebody cry, a lady cry. So we pray that the operation will continue so that we can rescue her alive.
Thankfully, 1 more casualty is rescued from the ruin, bringing the total to 4 evacuated thus far, all of them alive. She is taken by emergency service to the hospital. Convinced that all casualties have been successfully evacuated, the FCDA marks the property for immediate demolition.
Only that we had 4 people rescued, 2 have gone to the hospital, and we have 2 on hot.
The authorities say integrity tests will be carried out to ascertain the cause of collapse, but allege the use of substandard products for construction.
Well, the cause of the collapse has not been identified. We are still investigating because we have the residents of this building here. We only gathered that it was formerly a hotel that was converted to about 45 self-contained rooms being rented by residents of Kubwa. So for us to say what exactly was the cause, we cannot say that. But from the rubbles, you can see that the use of substandard materials is part of it.
It is mixed feelings for residents of the collapsed structure. While they are thankful to be alive and have escaped unhurt, they lament the loss of properties and the lack of a home.
Early this morning, my neighbor came to knock on the door that the building is shaking. So he said we should come outside. So when I came downstairs, I really saw the building shaking. So I went upstairs to wake my husband and my kids to come down. So immediately we just rushed down. The building collapsed.
More than 8 hours later, the rescue workers are convinced that no one is trapped in the rubble and have begun complete demolition of the remaining structure. Correspondents are worried about the spate of building collapse in the country and are calling for immediate actions to save innocent persons from loss of lives, injuries and other damages that occur from building collapse. Ferdinand Durora, Arise News.
We're now being joined by Ewenla Mustapha, an estate surveyor and valuer, to discuss incessant building collapse in Nigeria and what the government can do to mitigate the trend. Good to have you on Newsday.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Mustapha, the very first thing that comes to mind when it comes to issues like that, first the one in Jos and now here in Abuja, is regulation of the real estate sector. What's being done there? How proactive is it? Are the relevant agencies actually, you find a level of unprofessionalism. We just heard from the NEMA official there saying the building that collapsed could have been due to, proper building materials, as it were, and substandard stuff.
Okay, so first of all, I think our heart goes out to the families of the victim. Again, this could have been avoided. We've had too many cases of building collapse in the past couple of years in Nigeria. And I think that a lot of these problems are attributed to quite a number of issues, which one of them is substandard materials being used. Again, according to the Nigerian the building collapse prevention, the committee in charge of that sector. A large number of building collapse incidents that has happened in Nigeria. We have a total of about, I think, 541 cases, and 60% of that cases fell to be in Lagos. So coincidentally, we've had these issues spread around different parts of the country. So the things that I think that can be done is, one, we need to have a system that works. As a government, professionals in the real estate sector, professionals in the architectural sector, the APB and Association of Professional Bodies needs to come together to address these issues holistically. If you look at the case of the one that happened in Ikoyi a few years ago, this even terminated the life of the developer. Yeah. So every other time we keep having these issues, and I think our government is not proactive enough to come up with the policies that will stop all these menace. We cannot continue to lose life. How much, I was asking somebody yesterday, what is the value of human life to us in Nigeria? Look at the one that happened, just students having their exams, their lives were cut short arbitrarily. So I think, one, our government needs to ensure that structural integrity test is carried out on all new and existing building. Now, the Lagos State government recently has said that a lot of these properties being built all around Lagos are not registered. Some didn't get a lot of proper building plans before construction. I have a case of a certain developer in Lekki who built a house just a few months ago. One of my clients bought into one of the units. The house is already, showing signs of collapse. This is a brand new house. So these are issues. In Lagos particularly, which is one of the most affected states, we have, for me, I call them money misroad developers. People will see money and the next day they become a developer. No professional expertise. They think that the only thing they can do with their money is start building. Nobody is even stopping you from building, but ensure that you employ the use of professionals. So a developer will do direct labor. He will be the contractor, he will be the architect, he will be the builder. And at the end of the day, the people who buys into those projects becomes the victims. So I think what needs to happen is the government needs to be very proactive. We cannot continue to lose life. There should be a plan in place to ensure that those who are not professionals don't go near building construction. And if that is done, we can ultimately curb and reduce these menace that keep going on every other time. Also, I also do think that the kind of regulations and building codes that we have in Nigeria is giving room to quacks to come into the profession. Quackery, you find quackery in every profession. You have them even in the legal sector, you have them in the medical line. True. But as much as we can, we need to nip this in the bud. It has to be reduced. Right. Nigeria is one of the countries that has the highest number of building collapse cases in Africa. Nigeria is one of, and this is really shameful.
Okay, so Ewenla, let me take you up on a number of issues.
Yes, please.
First of all, looking at several of these buildings,
yes, please.
It's unfortunate that when a building collapse happens in Nigeria, there is surprise within the system. Everybody's surprised and everyone is all emotional about it. But this destruction, this destructive path started probably for some 10, 15, 20 years ago. Because the stress that is being put on the building over time.
Yes, exactly.
Aside, save the outlier, which was what happened in Ikoyi, for example. That building would have probably stood, and people might have been living in it.
True.
Only for something to happen 10, 20 years down the line, and they begin to cry foul.
Foul, true.
So how do we, because you mentioned something about going around and doing stress tests and several of these tests on buildings. Getting to my second question. How do we ensure that we do this and it does not overtly rub on the people the wrong way? Because, first of all, you cannot take away the political influence in trying to do this. Because several people, for example, buildings that have been marked X, will go and meet somebody at the top and try to get that building cleared. How do we ensure that that is being done? And secondly, aside just doing that, there is a huge housing deficit in Nigeria. When you begin to knock down houses, where will people live already? We are already at a deficit. When we begin to knock down houses, we're putting more stress on the system.
So I think that again, a lot of these issues rises and falls on the government. We as individuals, there's a lot of limitations we have pertaining to what we can do. Now, if you look at the case of the one in Kubwa that happened yesterday, the building was designed for an hotel. But somewhere along the line, it was converted to a residential property whereby they started making a lot of, conversions here and there. That's why. So that building wasn't designed for the kind of density of people that lived in it. That's why it gave way. So a building that was, if you look at, there's a lot of uniformity or similarity between the case in Jos was a 2-story building. The case in Abuja also at Kuba was a 2-story building. You will see that most of the error was a design error. The foundation didn't have the capacity to carry the 2-story building, and that's why over time, when you build a house, after like a year or two, it settles. Then after a while, if it's not able to carry that load, it gives way. So, but it's very, very unfortunate that we even see ongoing construction work collapsing. Mm-hmm. The one that happened in the Cartier a few years ago, during construction. The one that happened in Koyi was also during construction. So I think one of the ways to curb these issues, ultimately, now, when these issues happen, we don't get to see anybody being punished. We don't get to see anybody being punished for this.
Someone, permit me, I want to mention names.
Yes, please.
Someone was punished at a certain time. He had homes here on the island.
Yes.
And he was punished, but after probably a slap on the wrist, he's gone back to developing again. Yeah,
so that's why the system is corrupt. And some of our systems, to be very honest, has failed. For a developer who has an ongoing project and the building collapsed, such license of that person should be withdrawn. Such person should not even go near construction anymore because the havoc that's going to happen will be more than the first one that happens. So again, a lot of these rises and falls on the government. Most of these errors are attributed to design errors, poor quality of materials used. Some are even, so a lot of times they are man-made errors. It's not from God. They are man-made errors, and I think it should be curbed and it should be reduced to a certain level.
On a final note, I think you as stakeholders, estate surveyors and valuers, also should have that moral grounds to also report this when you go to assess these buildings and you see cracks all over especially the ones you're talking about, new buildings having cracks. That's a no-no.
Yeah, so the moral compass of the entire value chain and the entire structure is because of the deficit, everybody knows that there is money to be made in housing, and everybody just wants to make quick money.
On that note, Mustapha Ewenla, estate surveyor and valuer, would like to thank you for your thoughts on this. It's good to have you with us.
Pleasure.